how when you came to Bulgaria or when you came to America from Bulgaria, you saw the world differently. And now I believe you're living in Miami, whereas you were living in New York just a year ago. So how has that new environment shaped and how have you seen the world differently from the new environment?
The reason I like when people visit, especially from Bulgaria, like when my relatives visit, is because you get to see everything from fresh eyes, right? Like, because living in New York for the past like 5 or 6 years, I was used to walking around, not even like looking up. Like, I was just like, how do I get to my dry cleaning? Um, when I first moved, I was like, whoa, like that's so crazy. There's trash on the sidewalks. Like, I was fascinated by everything because I didn't have that in Atlanta. When we moved from Bulgaria to Atlanta, I mean, there was so much different that I can't even explain because I mean, everything, everything was bigger. Like, even McDonald's in Bulgaria was like a really nice restaurant. I had my 6th birthday there. It was like a very nice event. And then we got here and it was like, oh, you like McDonald's? Like, I was like, yeah, that's the best place on earth. And then you go, and my mom, for example, noticed that when you get a coffee in Bulgaria, it's espresso, so it's a tiny cup. Here, it's like this ginormous thing with a straw. And she's like, "What is going on?" Those little things shape. It's just the newness of it, and I actually don't like when you get used to it. I try to find new things to notice all the time because that's how ideas spark. For example, New York was New York until COVID hit. And when it first hit, the first time I went outside to the grocery store and I looked around and I was like, oh my God, everything is shut. And a lot of these places are actually going out of business. Immediately that sparked an idea. I was like, oh, well, I wonder how these small business owners are doing and like what they're thinking about. So I went and I interviewed them and then I
Mm.
published it. But like, you can't get new ideas if you don't notice new things. It's just everything's the same and it's boring and it's horrible. But the reason I say that is because the the greatest gift and blessing for me moving from Bulgaria to Atlanta, Georgia, is that I got perspective. And perspective in that I was born in a different country. We came here as immigrants. I got to see people who didn't look like me, people who didn't believe in the things I believed in. I lived in that. Then I moved to New York City. Again, a new environment, people with different beliefs. But I understood for the first time how you can have different bubbles and how those bubbles never talk to each other. And so to me, I don't judge people based on like, oh, they're just like Southern idiots or whatever, because I know their perspective. Like, I understand why they think the way they do. And I also understand why people in New York think the way they do. So for me, like, perspective breeds empathy. If you travel to new places, if you meet new people, if you actually make friends with people who don't see the world the same way you do, you get so much empathy.
When you say bubbles, what exactly do you mean?
Like, for example, people who say, I cannot believe that so and so voted for Trump or Biden or whatever. I understand. I am very well aware why it happened, how it happened. I wasn't as shocked as some people would be.
Hmm.
It's different lives, it's different cultures, it's like it's a whole different like prism on the world. Unfortunately, I so wish that some of the people I know in Georgia could hang out and become friends with some of the best people I know in New York, because that intermingling of ideas could actually like create change versus them just screaming at each other.
How do we do that? How do we start to bring together people of different uh, backgrounds and ideas and bring them into the same arena?
I try to do that with the profile. I try to do it with the Sunday newsletter when I include long form profiles of things I know will piss some people off. I'm like, great, let's bring it on, because it promotes ideas I know they vehemently disagree with. But once you read the whole profile, you get a small sense of empathy for that person if the profile did a good job of explaining why they believe what they believe. Then on Wednesdays, I publish dossiers that are of wildly different people. You have David Goggins on one end being like, you go and you do one thing every day that sucks and you're in pain and you suffer and you get through it. And then on the other end, you have somebody like Cheryl Strayed, who's like, maybe you set a challenge, it's difficult, but you realize like you need empathy for yourself, you need self-care, you need to slow down. Those are people on very different spectrums, but the reason I like featuring their stories is because it could open your mind to a new idea that you never considered. And hey, like if you're a David Goggins like enthusiast and then you read Cheryl Strayed, which by the way, Cheryl Strayed was one of the most popular ones, you're like, oh, wait a second, I never saw it from that perspective. And I think that's what I try to do. I try to like give you, when something's like you're reading it, I try to show you like, hey, by the way, there's like an underside of this thing, and then look at it from the back and the front and on top of it, like you see things from a different perspective. And that's all I aim to do, because I think people change their minds based on, they have to change their minds. I can't come here and scream at you until I change your mind. You have to read something, learn something, or hear something in a certain way that just like sparks that within you. And you're like, you know what? I get it now. I have more empathy now.